By the Word on Wealth Radio Network.
The airing of this program by this station is not an endorsement or recommendation by the station of the products or services discussed in the program. The station does not guarantee the results of any investments made by a listener to this program.
This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary is a San Diego financial solutions attorney, protecting people like you. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future. Now, here's Gary.
Welcome to the Word on Wealth. Hey, everybody. So good to have you along. Today, we're going to have a special guest, Rich Mathurin from GQ Law. He's a California attorney, has been at it for a couple decades at least. So we'll have his wisdom coming on at the bottom of the hour. In the meantime, you've got me, 888-344-1170. If you got questions for me, give us a call, 888-344-1170, and ask me your question. I'd be happy to answer it. So what we're going to be doing, first part of the show, I want to talk about it's too late. It's too late. And those are the words, those are the three words that it is too late. That'd be four words that I don't like to hear in my job, because it's too late is super dangerous. And I want to talk about why. Okay. Then we get to the half hour. We're going to talk to Rich about some interesting things, some programs that actually the Internal Revenue Service has made available for people who cannot afford to pay all their taxes. So that's going to be something you're going to want to listen to. We know the tax deadline this year, believe it or not, is October 15th. That's just completely insane. It's supposed to be April 15th, but here we are. We're going to be 6 months later, and that's when the deadline is. That's because of all the pandemic and the fires and on, and all these things we just keep. That's one of the things we do lately, is that we try to make people happy, and we like to just move deadlines all over the place because it seems, we think it might make people happy, but it doesn't make your tax professional happy. It doesn't make you happy if you owe money. It basically makes it so that you file your tax returns in the middle of October, and they're not going to move next year's deadline. It's going to be April 15th. So you file your tax returns in October, and you're going to file them again in April. So it's going to be 6 months later. Crazy stuff. I, for one, am really tired of the government trying to take care of me because, I'm a big boy. I can take care of myself. I don't mind having assistance and programs that are available, but don't try to dictate everything. I got to have some personal responsibility, right? Speaking of personal responsibility, waiting too late. It's too late. Seriously, four words that I hate. It is too late. Here's the thing. When you're trying to dictate or control or decide or move or position or target or guide where your assets are going after you're dead, you need to take care of that before you're dead and before you lose capacity. What are the chances of you dying? 100%, right? 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, 1 in 1. What are the chances of you becoming incapacitated? Meaning you might be mentally incapacitated or physically incapacitated. Okay, now the mentally incapacitated is the worst part, I think. Well, what happens with that is statistically, 70% of us, 7 out of 10, 70 and 100, are going to become incapacitated sometime in our life before we die. And maybe that's the last thing that happens, and it's 90 days before you die. Maybe it's going to be at least 90 days when you're 60 years old or 70 or 80, or we don't even know. But what is really unfortunate sometimes is I'll have people that want help, and they'll say, I'm calling for my dad and he really wants to get this done. There's a mistake in his estate plan, and he's been thinking about doing all this time, but now he is, now he's in hospice, or now he's in assisted living, now he's in rehab, and he wants to get it fixed now. That is so difficult because someone needs to make a determination of capacity. And you may very well have people around your dad or your mom that are saying, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about capacity. And what happens when you try to make updates or changes to any estate planning documents or any documents that require like a notary signature to be valid, those documents are going to be difficult to get notarized because you have the notary's going to be there, and the notary's not determining capacity. I mean, they don't sit there and go, let me ask a whole bunch of questions and see whether this person knows what's going on. But the notary cannot notarize a document if they believe that the person signing it really doesn't know what's going on. Okay. So I've had situations before where I think, okay, this person seems to be okay. It seems to be that they know, I know the situation. They've been my client for a long time. And now, it's been years. And then they come in and I go, I can't figure out whether this person has capacity. They're not really answering my questions right. They really don't know who the president is or kind of what day it is or where they are or why they come in to visit me. And I've gone to places where I go and visit somebody like in an assisted living facility or maybe in their home, or maybe they're in a rest home or on hospice somewhere. And when I go in to visit them, it's frustrating because I have my hourly rate and I don't do it for free. I don't know anybody that does, but I don't go for free. So it's my hourly rate. So I charge for travel time. I leave my office. I go to the visit. I'll meet with, the person and I'll ask them questions and figure out
2 minutes.
I believe they have the ability to determine what happens to their stuff. And there's a couple, there's really no way around it because somebody has to determine the capacity of that person. There are ways that it's there's a little more flexibility. And that's what I want to talk about in this first half of the show. If you have questions for me, I'd love a call, 888-344-1170. If you find yourself in a situation where you've got, mom or dad or you or husband or wife or something, someone that you care about that they really want to talk about changing their estate plan or fixing their estate plan or modifying their estate plan or doing an estate plan, and they're just kind of slowing down, it's really time to push to get them with somebody that's competent that can determine what their intentions are. Because if you wait too long and you become incapacitated, your money is stuck. And that to me is extremely frustrating. Because if your money is stuck, what I mean is nobody can spend it for you. Like you don't have the ability to spend it because you can't write a check legally. You can't take out a withdrawal. You can't pay your bills. And if you wait to that point and there's no power of attorneys or there's no trust and your money's not in the trust account or something like that, it gets to be where the banks will close the account. They'll just say, it looks like this person doesn't have capacity. So we're going to close the account because we don't trust that whoever's spending the money can do it legitimately. So I know this sounds like, are you kidding me, Gary? No, this is what we deal with. And it's a really frustrating thing for me. I would imagine it is for you too. If you have somebody that can help you with that, terrific. Have a trusted attorney help you out. And if you don't have somebody, then I would love a call from you. 855-500-TRUST. Let me help you out. 855-500-TRUST. I hope you get through that situation. And we'll be back in a moment on The Word on Wealth, talking more about don't wait too late.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We are here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com. 855-500-TRUST.
You're saving and investing for the future, and that's good. Have you ever stopped to think, where does my money actually go? This is faith-based investing with Anthony Wright.
Most Christian families don't understand this one thing. The money that you're saving for retirement helps fund the abortion industry as well as other liberal anti-family causes. It's the sad, dirty little secret of American investing world. And here's the good news, though. You probably also didn't know that just a few minutes of your time and we'll screen and clean your investments for you. There's no cost, no obligation. Learn the truth about your own investment mix. Then the choice is yours. Remember, the word says when God's money is in the hands of the righteous, the people rejoice. Well, we also are fiduciary investment advisor representatives. That means that our firm makes a pledge to always act in your best interest. Go to BibleSafeInvesting.com Download a free copy of my book, Faith-Based Investing, or call me at 931-RETIRED. And please don't forget, listen to Faith-Based Investing this weekend right here on Family Talk.
Gary, your team at GQ Law are experts at solving IRS and state tax problems. Talk about that.
When people have a tax problem, it tends to really stress them out. And one of the things we've been able to do is figure out how to resolve tax problems. One thing we might be doing is setting up a payment plan or getting a collection delay, maybe getting a determination that the person shouldn't have to pay the taxes at all. We do offers and compromise. We do auto reconsiderations. And one of the things that's a really powerful tool that some people don't recognize is sometimes bankruptcy can be used to actually eliminate taxes when there's certain conditions of the code that are met. So we can do all kinds of things. After we analyze your situation, we can figure out what's available, discuss your options, and figure out which ones to implement, what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take. And we can get people out from under all kinds of tax problems so they can sleep again. That's our goal.
Request your free initial consultation. GQLaw.com, 855-500-TRUST, GQLaw.com.
Who will you trust with the biggest financial decision of your lifetime? If you're planning to buy or sell a home in San Diego County, do what I do and work with the true San Diego real estate experts. Ken Pecos and the Pecos Group helped me and my family. They can help you. This is Gary Quackenbush of The Word on Wealth. You hear Ken every week here on The Word on Wealth. He's our expert. He's got integrity, exceptional service, deep knowledge of the San Diego, Coronado, and South Bay regions. These are just some of the reasons that Ken Pecos has completed hundreds of transactions. He manages a powerful team of professionals at the Pecos Group. From single-family attached homes to luxury high-value waterfront properties to apartment buildings, Ken Pecos is ready to help you avoid problems and costly mistakes. Learn more online at kenpecos.com. That's Ken Pecos, Pecus.com. Or call 619-977-8419.
DRE number 010566969, brokered by eXp Realty.
You're not alone. Ask for the legal help you need. Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST. Or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free consultation or to talk with a member of the GQ team. That's GQLaw.com, 855-500.
You're live.
All right. So happy to have you here on The Word on Wealth. We're talking about waiting too late and those dirty words that we never want to hear spoken in my office, like it's too late. Those are actually 4 words. Because what happens, usually if I'm saying that, it's because we want to make a change. Usually it's some of the kids, for example, usually, and when I'm saying kids, children, okay, I'm just, so I know the kids may be 65 years old, but the children of mom and dad will they've been told by mom and dad or mom or dad that they want to make some changes to the trust, to their estate plan. And now they're thinking, oh, they got to implement it. And so it might be that mom is thinking, oh, I really, I should have given more to that beneficiary, or I don't want that beneficiary to have any money, or I want to go to my grandchildren now. And the big thing is capacity, whether you have the legal capacity, the legal ability, the legal binding capacity to make that decision. And what I would be doing if I'm in that situation as an attorney and I'm trying to determine whether the person has capacity, I really need to sit down with, I I don't like doing them online. During the pandemic, we had some like crazy emergencies where we had to do this. And I'm not comfortable with that. I don't like it because it's like, how can I tell? Is there somebody there coaching them and prompting them and all that? But that being said, we are not in the pandemic any longer. And what I do is I will meet with the person. Now, if you can bring the person into my office or they can come in under their own power, that's even better. But let's say you bring them into my office and then I need to talk to them. What do they need to know? Basically, to determine whether they have the capacity to make a decision, I want to know, are they of sound mind? So I'm going to ask questions like, what kind of property do you have? Do you own a house? Do you own a car? Do you have any bank accounts? Just to get a basic understanding. Do they know, yes, I have a house. How many do you have? I have 2, or I have 1. If they're going to tell me the address and the value, that's super good. But if they're going to at least say, yeah, I got a house and I got some cash, bank account. And my next question really is, tell me what your plans are with your property. What do you want to have done with your property when you pass away? Who's going to get it? And then we'll have a conversation on to try to determine if they understand that that they know what their property is and they know where it's going. I also start out usually by saying, do you know who I am and why I'm here? And if it starts out like, I have no idea who you are and I have no idea why you're here, that's not an uncommon way to start, but at least I know where I stand. And then I have to say who I am and why I'm there. And it has to be that it was their desire to have me. So think about it. I show up to the house with your mom, and you're there because you decided, that this needed to be done. And, I've never met your mom before, and I'm the attorney trying to determine whether they have the capacity. Well, if there's any struggle with capacity and I say, do you know who I am? A lot of times they'll just say, I have no idea who you are, and I have no idea why you're here. Well, that's a really bad way to start, because if the person doesn't know why I'm there and who I am, well, then it hasn't been explained to them, because maybe they didn't understand me on the phone, or maybe this isn't their idea. And the thing to really understand and focus on is the property that we're talking about, the assets belong to, let's just say, mom. They're mom's, they're titled in her name. She has the legal ability, assuming she's capable of giving that property to anybody she wants. She can give it away to the neighbor or, the Amazon man, whoever she wants to give it away to, that's up to her. The challenge is, does she have the ability to do the documents legally? Does she have the capacity to really make that decision? And if they don't know who I am when I show up and they don't know what I'm doing there, that starts out to be a problem. And sometimes that really kind of ends the whole conversation. But I've had enough times where we talk about their estate plan and I ask them some questions and I start to figure out that they know what they want. And they know that what they want is going to require an attorney. And then they know that I'm now an attorney and I can help them out. But don't set it up like that. You got to be really careful. I mean, I really want to have a conversation with your mom or dad before I go there. I'd love the best thing is if you can get them here to my office. Even if it's, a hard day for them, it just makes a lot more sense. And why is that? Because if somebody's challenging what's going on, their challenge is going to be asking me questions like, well, who's the first person that contacted you? When did you first meet them? How are you referred to their office? How does my dad or mom or grandma or grandpa know you? And, what made you believe that they need to make some changes? And what was your conversation? What questions did you ask? And you go through a lot of things like that. And for me, that might be something that happens in a couple of months from now or 6 months from now or years from now. And that's going to be where my job will come in, is like, well, how many of those questions do I get to answer or do I have to answer? And so as you can see, the best thing would be to have the mom or dad come to my office, even if they need a ride, because if they're at my office, what I'm going to do is get to know them a little bit. And I'm going to invite everybody to leave the office except for mom or dad, and I'm going to have a conversation with them. Tell me what you want. I have had plenty of situations where all the kids bring in dad. Dad sits down with me and with all the kids, and they're saying, Dad wants to amend his trust. He wants it to say blah, blah, blah. He wants it to change this, and we want to move that. And Dad's giving, too much money to our younger sister, who's a total, she's financially responsible. The money's just going to get wasted. She's going to use it for something inappropriate. And so Dad wants to amend his trust. Don't you, Dad? That's exactly what I want to do. So I go through the conversation with them, and I say, okay, how about all of you just step out in the lobby where you can't hear us, and I want to have a conversation with Dad. I'll have a conversation, and it's confidential. And this person, Dad, is going to become or wants to become my client. That means it's total confidential. That means if he says, I cannot talk to his children anymore, that's exactly what's going to happen. I can't talk to him anymore. Confidentiality. So I had a couple of situations where Dad said, I don't want to change my trust. Everything in my trust is good. And I said, Dad, tell me what your trust does. My trust gives money to all of my children in equal shares. What about your kids' concerns that their younger sister is going to waste the money? And he said, I want to give all my money equally to my 4 children. And if they have a problem with that, if they waste the money, that's sad, but I can't control their lives. So I want it to go to all 4. So remember, the reason the kids brought Dad in is because they were convinced in their mind that Dad wanted to change the distribution to give less to little sister. Well, when Dad came in, he said, no, I don't want to change it. So I asked Dad, can I tell your kids what we discussed? He said, no. He said, it's confidential. It's none of their business. Interesting. None of their business. So I just say, okay, that's great. Chat a few more minutes, and he gets up and leaves. And the kids say, oh, is that it? I said, that's it. Your dad and I talked, had a good conversation. So he's ready to go home now. And the kids were, really kind of blown away. Like, what are you talking about? What's the change? And there wasn't a change, but I couldn't talk to him because the confidentiality was between me and Dad. And he asked me to keep it confidential. So you got to realize then I could have, and if you have questions for me, if this is a situation where your mom or dad is saying we really need to amend the trust, do it sooner rather than later. Don't wait. If you wait too long, too long is too long. It just can't be fixed. It can't be changed. Their desires can't be carried out. I'm happy to help you with that. It's 855-500-TRUST. That's my number, 855-500-TRUST. If we're talking about amending, we're talking about mom and dad are really slowing down, and they've always been talking about they want to change things, or they want to get an estate plan. Now's the time. Do not wait until it's too late, because there's some big decisions to make when you're doing a complete estate plan regarding, life support and all that. And I want them to make those decisions while they're competent so we can actually do it. So don't wait too late. 855-500-TRUST. I'll help you with your own estate plan also, so you can set the example. If Dad is just being stubborn and saying, I don't need a trust, I don't need no lawyers, then set an example and you do it. And have your dad come in to sit down and, be a second set of eyes and ears during your interview with me and get it done. And then maybe he'll say, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I see what you're doing now. At least you'll kind of have broken that ice thing out of the way. All right. So what we want to do is make sure we're not waiting too late. If you do wait too late, let's say a situation, this has come up several times. Want to do an amendment, want to do whatever. Mom's got a trust. One of the kids is a trustee. And let's say it's Bill. Bill is the trustee. And mom is having some difficulties writing checks and kind of doesn't remember who to pay and what to pay and all that. And so we want to talk to mom about whether she has capacity. And lo and behold, she does not. Doesn't know what she has. Not that she's, just like staring into outer space, but she really doesn't know enough to make
2 minutes
legal decisions. So I make that determination. Sorry, mom is not capable of making these decisions. I think she's probably mentally incompetent. I'm sorry. So what do we do at that point? Well, if money needs to be spent, you need to get into the account to be able to pay the caregivers and pay for the facility and all that. Then you're going to have to go and see if she has a power of attorney. If she has a power of attorney, that's a durable power of attorney, then you might be able to access some of her money with a durable power of attorney. If you don't have that, or if her money is not in the trust because she forgot to put it there, or never did, or took it out or closed that account, you have to figure out how to get money in that trust. And because she's incapacitated, if you have no power of attorney, you cannot. As a result, then you're going to have to probably apply for a conservatorship. That's a legal process in probate court where you want a determination of her incapacity.
1 minute.
And you want to be named as the person that's going to be taking care of her money. And that would be the conservator of the person. Mom becomes the conservatee or the proposed conservatee, and you become the proposed conservator. And the idea is that you become like this court-appointed power of attorney that can control her money and her physical situation, where she lives, who she's with, and that type of thing. Conservatorships, they only last a year. You got to keep resetting them every year. They're a difficult process. It's really awful to see your parent go through that. But that's if you wait too late. If mom waits too late, and now we got to get into her money to be able to take care of her, that's a conservatorship. And they're not fast. They're expensive. They're slow. Avoid it. Get a power of attorney, get the will, the trust, and all that stuff put together while you have capacity. Do it while you're young enough to do it. Get your parents to do it while they're young enough to do it. You're listening to The Word on Wealth, and we are here to talk with Rich Mathurin coming up right now to talk about your tax situations or those of your friends right here on The Word on Wealth.
You've got questions. We've got answers. This is The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary's here to give you peace of mind with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary to build, protect, and transfer your wealth. 855-500-TRUST. This broadcast outreach, The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Call or click to request your free initial consultation or to talk with a member of the team. Call Gary at 855-500-TRUST, gqlaw.com.
You're live.
Right. Hey, I told you this would happen. We got Rich Mathurin from GQ Law here. Rich is our head of our tax legal department, which is anything tax related and legal related, fun stuff like that. Rich, I sent So if you guys have a question for Rich, you can call. It's 888-344-1170. Ask him your question and we can talk about it. This is going to be, if you don't have a tax problem, somebody else does that you know. So just listen up on this stuff. We'll be taking calls, 888-344-1170. We're going to have Rich right to the top of the hour. Sometimes what Rich and I get as tax attorneys is we get notifications from the IRS, like of these new changes or law changes. And I forwarded an email to Rich today, and it was like this new law regarding cryptocurrency. And they've come up with this, if you have, the language in it was just so over my head. It was like, if somebody is, the bond survivor of a crypto blockchain, 3 terms, whatever, then it's going to be termed. We're like, whoa. But what the IRS is always trying to do is trying to determine what is taxable. And they're trying to determine what is income. Because under the Internal Revenue Code, it says that, income is taxable, income from whatever source derived. So you have these things like with, a normal thing, if you sell something for more than you paid for it, then that's a gain, and that's potentially a taxable gain. If you earn money, that's taxable income. So you have these things with cryptocurrency where numbers are moving all over the place, up and down, whatever, and people are buying and selling. And as that money moves up and down, there's gains and losses, and the IRS is trying to figure out how to tax that, because some of them are like instantaneously go up and then back down and whatever. So that was interesting. So, but our world, you're staying away from the cryptocurrency and the artificial intelligence for the rest for this show. And we're going to go back to the regular intelligence. And that is, what if you found yourself in a situation where you owed more money to the IRS than you could actually pay? So for that, I want to kind of turn the, question to Rich. If somebody owes money to the IRS, when do they usually end up contacting you? Kind of at what point in their trauma do they do that?
Usually very late in the process, once they've gotten about a stack of notices and the IRS is threatening to levy their bank accounts or garnish their wages.
That's what it is. Like, so Rich, how soon does this have to be done? Well, they sent me a notice like 8 days ago. So let's talk about that as far as solutions. Waiting too late. On the first part of the show, I was talking about waiting too late for like estate planning. Like if you wait until you're incapacitated or you've just kind of waited too late to make legal decisions. Now we're kind of like on this, well, what if you wait too late to deal with your tax problem? But I want to kind of go into the solutions with you, Rich. And there's this, I know the IRS came out with this, fresh start initiative saying, we're the kinder, gentler IRS, and we're going to give people the ability to have a fresh start. But I want to talk about this partial pay installment agreement. So what's an installment agreement? What do you mean by partial pay?
Well, generally, the IRS wants obviously you to pay your balance in full. They have a program that they used to call the Fresh Start Installment Agreement, but now I think it's just a regular installment agreement. That's where you owe less than $100,000 of tax balance. And if you are willing to full pay your balance over some number of months, the IRS isn't going to ask you for financials, prepare a financial statement, provide bank statements and pay stubs. So that's basically what we would call a full pay installment agreement. But in a lot of cases, people can't pay the full pay because they're older balances, and the payments would be high because a lot of the balances would be falling off under the statute of limitations, and therefore the IRS would be looking for higher payments than they could afford. So in that case, we would do what we would call it a partial pay installment agreement. Basically, it encompasses what your ability to pay on a monthly basis is towards your tax balance, and it doesn't really factor in what a full pay would be. But it is, taking your income, and then you would have allowed expenses, maybe some additional expenses beyond what is allowed. And that net income number, it would be what they would probably, the IRS would be taking as a partial pay for your full balance.
So partial pay, then it's partial because the IRS they run out of time, right? Kind of like,
Yes, I think we've talked about this before. The
Yeah.
IRS has 10 years from the date of assessment to collect on your
Okay.
balances. So say you filed for 2014, you filed a 2015 tax return April 15th, your balance, assuming that there were no tolling or stopping the statute from running events, your balance would fall off on April 15th, 2025, April 16th, I guess, technically.
okay.
And so the IRS has that 10-year period to collect on your balance. And there, like we talked about, there are tolling events like a bankruptcy or an offer in compromise,
Okay.
but generally it's a 10 years. And so that's what creates the higher than normal payments that under a full pay. You know, you might, since you have an old balance and it's going to be expiring in like 2 years, the IRS wants you to pay a lot higher amounts currently, so
Okay.
you can pay off that balance quicker because they
Okay.
only have a couple of years to collect on it.
So so even if the IRS has 10 years to collect, but it's already been 8, there's 2 years left. Now you're dealing with them because they're trying to get your money and beat you up and stuff. And so you say, okay, I want to make a payment plan. And the IRS says, okay, pay it off in the 24 months that we have left to collect. So then payment might be too big. So then you're saying that actually, if in that scenario, there's a couple of years left on the statute of limitations and the client can only afford to pay like $400 a month, and that $400 a month times 24 is going to pay, $10,000, and they owe like 80,000. There are times when the IRS will actually let the payment, let the person have a payment plan, and then the liability just doesn't even get finished. They just drop off.
Yes,
Wow.
that's the extent of a partial pay. You're only paying 10,000 of the $80,000 balance. So
Okay.
basically, the IRS is waiving the additional 70,000 and not saying we can't collect on that. You have, you only have a certain amount of income. You're allowed expenses. That's your rent and utilities, food and clothing, car, healthcare. One thing that I will caution, in San Diego, even if your expenses are high, let's say your rent is $4,000 a month, the IRS is only going to allow you a certain level of amount per person. I think it's like $2,600 for housing and utilities. That doesn't get you very far in San Diego, but you have to keep that in mind. So, if you're living in an excess life, if you're paying for your child to go to college, they don't allow, I think they allow 1/4 of expenses for that, but otherwise they want to be paid first before Johnny gets, he might have to go to community college, unfortunately. But
and I think, and it almost sounds, when we kind of discuss it like that, it's like, oh, that doesn't seem fair. Well, the IRS, if you owe all this money to the IRS, and maybe that seems unfair, that's just, the IRS just goes by rules. So if the rule is, they don't want you paying for college tuition, they want the taxes paid back first. That's just the rule. It's not, is it fair or unfair, whatever, that's just the rule. So if you're trying to calculate this, like the ability of the client to pay that money and whether they could partially pay or full pay. So you set it up to where, apply the IRS's standards. There's other things you can do. And I know you kind of have I always call it your magic wand, but it's like if they're self-employed, there's certain exceptions, there's certain ways to kind of, take advantage of certain numbers, but you end up coming with a payment amount. And let's just say it's like, whatever, $1,000 a month, but that's not enough to fully pay the liability before the IRS runs out of time. They could accept that and just take the $1,000 a month. And then in 2 or 3 or 4 years from now, it just like that part just drops off and goes away.
One thing I will mention with the partial pay that I've had a lot of good luck, and I heard in the past that if you own a home and you have a lot of equity, the IRS in the past might ask for you to take a home equity loan to pay off your balance in full immediately. But I've had a lot of luck recently with clients that do have home with a lot of equity. And the IRS has taken these partial pay installment agreements instead of the requiring them to borrow against their home equity. So that's a good thing to keep in mind.
Interesting, because I guess because another option, like if you're trying to figure out how to pay, if you did this payment plan, partial pay installment agreement, you figure it out and you go, okay, this guy can afford what, I know it's a big number, but $1,000 a month. If you instead said you're going to do an offering compromise, then they're going to look at that $1,000 a month and they're going to look at equity in homes. So it almost seems like, because I guess when the show was starting, I'm going, well, partial pay, if you only could afford a certain amount of money to the IRS, why do a partial pay? Why not just do an offering compromise? But then you're saying with the offering compromise, the IRS is going to look at equity in the house
1
and
minute.
say, we're not going to compromise this liability because you have enough equity to satisfy it. So it sounds interesting, the partial pay. It sounds like it's definitely something to explore.
Yeah, and we maybe should also talk about non-collectible when we get back from the break.
Okay, that's a good idea. You're listening to The Word on Wealth. We got Rich Mathurin from GQ Law. He's our tax attorney here and deals with a lot of situations with the IRS and the state of California with taxes owed, and the IRS or the state is coming after you, getting wages, pounding your bank account, really making your life scary and keeping you up at night. Give us a call at GQ Law. That's 855-500-TRUST. Man, forget the number. 855-500-TRUST. You can get a hold of Rich, get an appointment to come in, see him for a free initial consultation to figure out whether you have the ability to do a partial pay installment agreement or offering compromise or the currently not collectible. We're going to be talking about that coming up next here with Rich Mathurin here on Word on Wealth from GQ Law. And we're going to talk about currently not collectible coming up next on the Word on Wealth.
To know everything, you just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We're here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com. 855-500-TRUST.
Gary, how do you and your team help our listeners avoid probate?
Well, first of all, probate is a process that involves attorneys, judges, and sometimes contesting parties. And so we try to avoid probate at pretty much all costs. The way we do that is setting up living trusts, setting up properly documented wills, putting the property like houses, cars, bank accounts in that trust so that it avoids probate. Probate is only necessary if the estate plan isn't set up quite right. So we help them get it set up right. And mainly that's done through a properly created living trust.
Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free initial consultation. That's gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
Hi, this is
You're not alone. Ask for the legal help you need. Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free consultation or to talk with a member of the GQ team. That's gqlaw.com, 855-500.
Live.
All right. You're listening to Word on Wealth with Rich Mathurin and Gary Quackenbush. We are both California attorneys. We're doing this for a long time. Well,
Yeah, too long.
all right. Agreed. So we're talking about tax problem solving and issues and situations. And it's kind of like, well, why do you talk about that stuff, Gary and Rich? Well, because that's one of the things that we do at GQ Law is help people take care of their tax situation. It's kind of like if somebody has a tax problem, a lot of times they're willing to discuss it with their family because they're struggling. And it's kind of like, why are you so sad today? Well, the IRS took my bank account, or I can't pay you back, or whatever. But it just happens. It's very common. A lot of people have tax problems. The IRS really is trying to collect $13 trillion a year. Some of it is on your tax returns that you filed currently, and other is a lot of money billions that have not been collected in back taxes. The IRS is working on that. So if you're in a situation where you have taxes, back taxes, you're trying to deal with it. Rich talked about in our last segment about partial pay installment agreements, where there are conditions that if they're met, the IRS will sometimes allow payments where the payments will never satisfy the liability. So that as you're making those payments, you could actually have the IRS tax liability while you're making those payments just go away, because they can only collect for 10 years from the date they assess. And that's each year, right? So each year has its own little 10-year thing.
Yes, it's when the tax return was filed, that's when the statute of limitations starts running, when the balance is assessed. Normally they're the same, the date of filing and the assessment data are the same.
Okay.
So, and then it has 10 years to run. We talked about the tolling events that might stop the statute from running. That if you were in a bankruptcy, that stops it while you're in that bankruptcy. Also, if you had submitted an offer in compromise while they're processing that offer in compromise, that does toll it. So you have to take those things into account. But
interesting. It's interesting that you say that, because how many times do you deal with somebody that's come in and you're thinking, oh, the statute of limitations might run out, or somebody says, I don't know why the IRS is after me. You said it was a 10-year statute, and you go, well, did you ever submit an offer in compromise? I don't know. I went to some company and I paid them a bunch of money and they didn't do anything for me. And you pull the records and go, yeah, they did. They filed an offer in compromise.
yeah, we had a client that had a $400,000 balance, and everybody was telling him to file bankruptcy or that his balance is going to fall off under the statute. And he had a bunch of tolling events, and it brought his balance out. The statute wasn't going to end until 2026. So you do need to make sure to take into account and review those things. We have talked about our tax report in the past. Our tax report does pick up your tolling events. So
okay. So that is interesting. So it seems really like, instead of going in and getting a cast put on, figure out if your arm's really broken. If you go to and we talk about this sometimes, Rich, don't we? Actually, we talk about it all the time. It's like, if you have a tax situation, especially an old one, you may not actually know, what's left, how much time the IRS has to collect. Is there something that happened in your past that would have stopped that 10-year statute? What I mean by stop is it makes it longer, like it tolls it. So if it's 10 years and you have a tolling event, like an offer in compromise, that stops it for the time that you're in the offer, then the offer is rejected, and then it adds another year. So if you file an offer in compromise, especially if it's a crummy one that doesn't really work, that's going to extend it a year, year and a half, sometimes 2 years. So that would mean ultimately you don't really have 10 years, you have 11 or 12 years to go. So, just be aware of that. And if you want to know what's going on, one of the things that Rich has been able to do is he has this software that we have the access to the IRS records, and it prints out this like crazy comprehensive report, like for each year that you owe, when will they stop collecting, how much you owe, what's the penalties, what's the interest, do you qualify for an offer, for bankruptcy, for payment plans. It's really a cool report that we can get. And that's something you pretty much can do for anybody, right?
Yes, we just need to get an IRS power of attorney from the client, and takes a little bit of time to process. But once it's processed, we can download the report. It's about a 40-page report. It gives you all that information you mentioned, your wage and income summary for the last 10 years to know whether you needed to file or not. If you have civil penalties from a business that were personally assessed to you, it tells you about those and when those might fall off. One thing I always caution clients that I can't tell them to not pay their taxes, but if your balance is going to fall off under the statute of limitations in a month or something like that, you may want to wait and wait out the statutes. I've had many clients that have waited out and saved big time. Recently, a client, I think his balance is falling off next month, and he's probably going to save about $20,000. So
that's worth it. I mean, yeah, that's interesting.
I can't say don't pay your taxes, but
yeah,
the report's there. You do the math type of thing. So
yeah, interesting. Now there is, we talked about partial pay installment agreement. What about this currently not collectible? And I know some people say it used to be called a category 53 because the IRS would put a code on your main record. It was a 530 code, 530. So we'd call it a category 53. That was back in the olden days. But so talk about this currently not collectible. Like why would you do something like that? Or what does it mean?
Well, it's sort of I wanted to bring it up because it's sort of an offshoot of the partial pay installment agreement. We have to provide financials, the IRS financial statement, usually banks, 3 months of bank statements and some pay stubs you have to basically show your cards to the IRS, what's your ability to pay. Again, this is for people that maybe are going through some serious medical conditions and aren't able to work, or they're unemployed and they've lost their job and they can't pay anything to any creditor. Then the currently not collectible status might be a good one for you. One thing to keep in mind, it's only at a point in time. So if you win the Mega Millions tonight, you lose the non-collectible status. But if
darn, they're going to get I'm going to get $80 million, and the IRS is going to take, the IRS is going to take half for taxes. But anyway,
yeah,
I digress.
But so that, that's, and the currently with the good thing with the currently not collectible is the statute of limitations that we talked about earlier. That 10-year thing keeps running while you're in the currently not collectible.
That's
so let's say let's say you have this issue for 5 years and you have 5 years left in the statute. You might not owe anything by the time you get out of the currently not collectible. But again, they can, if they get notice that you did get a job and you get through W-2s or 1099s, that you have the money to pay, they might reopen your case and ask you to provide an updated financials to show your ability to pay. But it is a good program. Again, we got to remember that they're going to only allow certain expenses for, a single individual for San Diego, for rent and utilities, food and clothing, transportation, medical, all that. And whatever that net, if that net number is $0 type of thing, or you're underwater, then you probably will qualify for non-collectible. And that's like I said, that's probably the best program status you can get into, because they're not doing any involuntary collection while you're in that, and the statute continues to run on your balances.
Interesting. So the thing that I'm hearing from you, Rich, is that it's really important to kind of know what you're up against. Not, don't just, you hear some fantastic commercial on the radio, like, oh, you qualify, pay us money and we'll make it go away. It's like, you really need to know your options. You really need, do you qualify for a partial pay installment agreement, or even better, do you qualify for a non-collectible status? And what will that do? And what are the criteria? And does that hurt any other chances? What about an offer in compromise? I mean, those are super popular. They're really, really heavily advertised. You have this offer in compromise and pay us $1,000 and your life will be good again. But it's like, we got to be super careful with all of those. And I can't really emphasize enough. If you want to talk to Rich about this, the number is 855-500-TRUST, 855-500-TRUST. If you want to learn a little bit more about it, a lot more about it, you can go to our website. That's gqlaw.com, GQ, like Gary Quackenbush, gqlaw.com. And there's some articles there. There's some good blog posts. You can re-listen to this podcast, radio show, all that stuff. But I think the thing that I'm getting from you, Rich, is that really for people that have tax situations, they need to know their options. They need to have it studied out. They need to talk to somebody like you and figure out really what options are available, instead of just like plowing into one or getting talked into one, like know what's going on.
Yeah, there are a lot of good, we talked about in probate, you do have options regardless with the IRS. They always can work things out. May not be as good a deal as you would have gotten if you had acted a little bit sooner, but there always are options. But I will say that I think people think that there's a special deal out there for them, particularly with the IRS, that they're not going to give to anybody else. And there's some guy in the back room with a cigar that goes thumbs up or thumbs down. Again, you got to remember,
that doesn't happen.
No, not that I've known. They have like 20 million people that owe taxes to them, so they have to have these programs and they have to have their rules. Find out whether you qualify for these programs, and they are great programs, but you got to make sure that you do qualify. There is a program out there for you. Again, it may not be the great one that your friend, Marge got, but there is a good program for you. But you do need to make sure that you do qualify, because there are certain rules for each of them.
Okay. So you got it here, right here on the Word on Wealth with Rich Mathurin. It's the number to call Rich is 855-500-TRUST. I'll let him work through your tax situation with you, figure out how to determine your options, maybe get that awesome tax report where we can get the records from your tax pass for the last, 10 to 15 years?
10 years.
About 10 years. Give us a call, 855-500-TRUST. And if you want any consultation with me, you get one with me too. 855-500 Trust. We can help you out with your taxes, your estate planning. You heard it right here on the Word on Wealth. You can always find us on our website, gqlaw.com. There's information there. There's contact information. There's a book that we've written called The Tax Bankruptcy, which actually talks about the tax problem solving we just mentioned and about whether you qualify for bankruptcy for taxes. All right, we'll be back tomorrow here on the Word on Wealth. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
Tell a friend about the Word on Wealth, featured since 1995. With financial solutions attorney Gary Quackenbush, an expert in estate planning, wills and trusts, and tax problem solving. Gary is past president of the California Society of Tax Consultants. Reach out to us. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future. The information you hear on the Word on Wealth is for general information purposes only. This program discusses general financial and legal topics. Seek legal advice from a competent lawyer for your individual legal needs. The opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the views of Salem Media Group or its sponsors.
The airing of this program by this
Thanks, dude.